Is anyone else getting blank blotches instead of getting faces for people or names? At the bottom, it's just a line of.
No.
No, it's mine. Everyone's playing up a bit differently. So.
Ah, it's Kevin.
Rod, I'm just seeing a black screen for you. You got video turned off?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
Turned off now. Turned on again.
That's better. I can see you now.
There he is. Without his hat. Wait for Paul Wynn now. I've not seen Karen's face appear.
Oh, what's that?
It is 2 o'clock, Chair. Just gone 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
So I think we should
start.
So let me check that we're live streaming, Chair, and then we can go ahead.
Okay. Well, welcome everyone.
Yes, we are streaming. So
that's good. It's good to see you and anybody that's listening in or watching in. Welcome to you all at this difficult time, shall we say, but take the opportunity to wish all people who are watching, and whether watching live or watching later, to have as good a Christmas as they will hope to have. Not going to be easy, but stay safe, and let's hope you all have a good time, and we'll look forward to a much better, couldn't be much worse, could it? A much better 2021 than 2020, which must be the worst year in living memory.
Yeah. Anyway,
we'll make a start. Now, I have to read this out, this briefing note, so please bear with me. I'm obliged to inform you that this meeting is being live streamed and recorded. Members of the public can see and hear the meeting as it is happening. Members are reminded to mute their microphone unless asked to speak. This helps prevent any background noise from interfering with the meeting. Members are asked to refrain from speaking across each other. If you wish to ask a question or make a comment, please indicate via the chat or hand function on your Teams. The Executive Support Officer will conduct a roll call of members before consideration of business commences. That's Lynn, of course. Officers will be invited individually to deliver their papers. At the end of each paper, I will refer to the chat function to address any comments or questions. When discussions on the paper are completed, I will ask for a proposer and seconder. Members are asked to propose and second via the chat function. Once the recommendations have been proposed and seconded, the Executive Support Officer will conduct a roll call to register members' votes, i.e. for, against or abstain, and I will then confirm the result of the vote. And I will then move to the next paper and invite the next officer to speak. So, you've got the agenda there. I'll ask Lynn now to conduct the roll call of members.
Thank you, Chair. So if members could just answer to their names, please. Councillor Adams.
Muted.
You're on mute.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Blundell.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Carter, we know. No. Councillor D.
Present.
Councillor Hartin.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Lavery.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Mellings.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Milner. We've had apologies. Councillor Minery.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Pardy.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Price.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Roberts.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Sahota, apologies. And Councillor Thompson and Councillor Wynne. He's been having, he's just
arriving now.
Just there, he's had some issues logging in. So, Councillor Wynne, can you confirm you're present now?
Yes, I can. I'm here after a bit of a struggle. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I've just read out the briefing notes. I won't repeat it all. We've been through it before about using your chat if you want to make a comment, and when we want to get to proposers and seconders, and Lynn will make a roll call to get the proposal seconded and then all agreed or not. Do I have to welcome Dan, or is he not with us today, Lynn? You're muted.
I'm on mute. Wonderful start. He wasn't sure if he could attend, and it looks like he's not been able to join us.
Okay, I'll cross that out then. Okay. So just make sure we have a proposal and a seconder for all items and the agenda as we go through. Right. So we'll go to the formal agenda now. And apologies for absence. I believe we've got 3, have we not, Lynn?
That's right, Chair. So councillors Sahota, Thompson and Milner.
Right, thank you. Disclosable pecuniary interests. You have to wait with me. Tracy's joining us now. Deputy PCC. I'll let you let her in, Lynn.
Okay, that's it, Chair. She should be in now.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. Sorry I'm late. My IT was up to normal scratch for me. Sorry about that, Chair.
Okay, welcome, Tracy. Good to see you.
Thanks.
Right, and reading off the agenda now. Members are reminded that they must not participate in the discussion of or voting on any matter in which they have a disclosable pecuniary interest and should leave the room prior to commencement of the debate. Does any member have a disclosable pecuniary interest to declare? Appear not. Oh, sorry, Pauline has.
Yes, agenda item 6, and I've got a declared an interest in item 14 on the agenda, the pension board minutes.
Right. Okay, is that noted, Lynn?
It is, Chair. Thank you.
Right. Item 3.
Sorry, Kev Pardy.
Have I missed somebody else?
Yeah, Kev Pardy, same as Councillor D with the pension.
Oh, sorry, Kev. Yeah, I didn't see your hand then. Okay, fine. Right, well, let's move on to public questions, Lynn.
Thank you, Chair. There's no public questions.
Right, so item 4, which is the meeting held on the 14th of October. Do we have a proposer and a seconder for that?
I'll propose.
Pauline D proposed.
Yeah.
Seconder?
I'll second.
Karen Blundell. Yeah.
So Karen Blundell.
That
I
was
can't see Karen on the screen. That's why I didn't notice. So
okay, she's put it in the chat, Chair, so it's fine.
Okay. And do we have a vote to take on this to all agree now, Lynn?
We do, Chair. So as I call out your names, members, could you just state for, against or abstain? Councillor Adams.
On mute.
You're on mute.
It's getting off mute that's difficult. Yes, I'm for.
Thank you. Councillor Blundell.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Carter.
4.
Thank you. Councillor D proposed. Councillor Hartin.
4.
Councillor Lavery.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Mellings.
4.
Thank you. Paul Milner is apologies. Councillor Minery.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Pardy.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Price.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Roberts.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Sahota and Thompson have given apologies, and Councillor Wynne.
4.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. That vote is agreed.
Right, we'll move on to item 5, which is the Strategy and Resources Committee, and I'll hand over to Chris Mellings.
Thank you, Chairman. Chris Mellings, Chairman of the Strategy and Resources Committee. Members have hopefully had sight of the minutes that have been circulated from the meeting on the 12th of November. As is usual at this time of the year, the minutes are split into two parts. There is a recommendation for the authority to consider at item 7 of paper 5 that was included as part of the meeting pack. The item number 8 will be dealt with later on the agenda, relating to the budget for 2021 and 22 onwards. So happy to try and field any questions. but whilst I have the floor, I'll move the recommendations contained in paragraph 2 in paper 5A.
And I'll second, Councillor Hartin, I'll second.
Councillor Hartin, second. Right. Do we need to go to another vote here, Lynn?
We do, Chair, thank you. So, Councillor Adams?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Blundell?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Carter?
For.
Thank you. Councillor D?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Hartin, seconded. Councillor Lavery?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Melling's proposed. Councillor Milner? Sorry, apologies, Councillor Milner's not here. Councillor Minery, sorry.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Pardy?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Price?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Roberts?
For.
Thank you. And Councillor Wynne?
For.
Thank you, Chair. That vote's agreed.
Okay. Have you covered both of those then, Chris, 5A and on 7 as well?
Yes, my proposal was to include that, and item 8 we'll pick up later on the agenda.
Okay.
Thank you, Chairman.
We'll move on to item 6, and I understand that Pauline will be taking this in the absence of Kuldip. Is that correct?
Yes, I was just told just before the meeting. Yeah. Yes, I'd like to move the minutes of the Standards Audit and Performance Committee minutes and ask members to look at the item marked 6 and consider and decide upon the recommendations at item 13. This we've already had is on paper 6A, and it's just a you're asked to note the review of and agree the proposed amendments to the members' code of conduct, and I don't know whether you want me to read it out, Chairman, but they are the recommendations are there for members to see. Perhaps in case of anybody for the public. Well, B is.
I think you should read them out then, Paul.
Yeah, all right then. B is note the review of related procedures and documents and agree the proposed amendments to the Code of Conduct complaints procedure, the Code of Conduct complaints form, the disposable pecuniary interests form and dispensation procedure, and finally C, make recommendations accordingly to the fire authority. So I would move those recommendations.
We want to propose, and you're proposing then, Pauline, do you have a seconder?
Councillor Minery, seconded, Chair.
Okay. Okay, then we take a roll call then now, Lynn.
That's right, Chair. Thank you. Councillor Adams.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Blundell.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Carter.
For.
Thank you. Councillor D proposed. Councillor Hartin.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Lavery.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Mellings.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Minery, seconded. Councillor Pardy.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Price.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Roberts.
For.
Thank you. And Councillor Wynne.
For.
Thank you. That vote's carried, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. So we move on to item 7, and this is for Joanne to give a review of financial regulations. Joanne.
Thank you, Chair. This is our annual review of the financial regulations that we have in place jointly with Hereford and Worcester Fire and Rescue Authority. It's not a legal document, but it is best practice to ensure that we have a regular review of our financial regulations. The document is attached to the report via a link for members to view. It has been reviewed. There are very few changes to make to this year's. Two notable changes are that we have stated in the document that our environment's procedures relate to both capital and revenue budgets. And also in terms of imprest accounts, which is a petty cash account held at the authority, the regulations now state that we no longer run an imprest account, so that has been reflected. Those are the only changes, Chair. I'm happy to take any questions.
Well, Chris Mellings has indicated, I see.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Thanks, Joanne. It's more of a comment really than a question. Appreciate the proposed changes this year are limited. That's the advantage with doing regular annual reviews, is that we're able to pick up and make changes as we go along year to year. But I was interested to read that in the section overview, in 1.1.6, it refers to the expectation that every member of staff should read and understand both the financial regs and any related documents. And when looking through the financial regulations, there are various references to the role of the fire authority and to fire authority members. And it occurred to me when looking through the document that perhaps there ought to be a similar 1.16 or an appropriate 1.16 relating to members. And whilst it's not obviously for members to know the detail of the financial regulations necessarily, because of the role that we're required to play within it, I think that there ought to be a similar expectation that members have at least got access to it and have read it to understand their role in the process. So apologies for sort of raising this on the hoof a little bit. So trying to play around with wording today probably is not helpful. But if there is a way of weaving something into either this document or there may be other member-related documents where it might fit better, that a reference to the financial regulations is picked up. Obviously, they underpin our governance, and obviously strong governance is important, and financial regulations play an integral part in that. So I feel personally that would be helpful to include something appropriate to reflect that. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Chris. Joanne?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. If I may respond, it's a very valid point, and as you know, we do have a number of sets of regulations and standing orders that are in place both for officers and members. So if you'll allow me, I'll undertake to cross-reference those documents to make sure that the financial regulations are made available to members and are also referenced so that they can go there if they need any points of reference. So I'll undertake to update that as part of this recommendation.
Do we need to make any alterations to the recommendation then on today's report, or will that be done later?
Again, I'll refer back to the Executive Support Officer, but I think if we can make a note in the minutes that we'll undertake that as well as approving the document, I'll make sure that's all taken account of. Okay.
Do we have any other questions or comments from members? Otherwise, I'll ask for the proposal in a second there.
Chris Mellings, member of the Fire Authority, I'll propose the recommendation in paragraph 2.
I'm happy to second that myself, if necessary, Lynn.
Thank you, Chair.
And then we'll ask for another vote to be conducted now.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Adams.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Blundell.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Carter seconded. Councillor D.
Muted, Pauline. That's it.
Thank you. Councillor Hartin.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Lavery.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Mellings proposed. Councillor Minery.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Pardy.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Price.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Roberts.
For.
Thank you. And Councillor Wynne.
For.
Thank you, Chair. That's agreed.
Thank you very much, members. We'll move on to item 8, which is the 2021-22 and later years budget summary for decision, and I'll pass to Joanne once more.
Thank you, Chair. This paper follows on from the paper that was taken to Strategy and Resources Committee in November. At that meeting, it was noted that a one-year spending review had been announced by the government. Again, we're in a position where we have a great deal of uncertainty following next year with the result of a one-year spending review. But in the current circumstances, I think that's all we could really expect. The committee also reviewed our reserves that stand at around £16 million, and there is a paper appended to this report to detail our reserves and funds held. In terms of the spending review, the details were announced on the 25th of November, and the main headlines were that the settlement was expected to be protected in real terms. A flat cash pensions grant is anticipated, and that would continue our £1 million grant that we've received over the last couple of years. 75% of our collection fund losses are to be compensated by government. We had received information prior to the announcement that we would be able to pay back any collection fund deficits over 3 years. So this was something new that was announced on the 25th. We are still waiting for details on how that will actually be accounted for, and we'll bring those to members as and when we get that information. Public sector pay was also frozen for 21-22, with the exception of those earning less than £24,000. So that was a change to the assumptions that we had in place. And also the council tax referendum limit has been held at 2% for the fire sector. And we are expecting a provisional settlement tomorrow. So obviously when we receive that information, we will produce a document that details what we're likely to get for 21-22, and we will circulate that. So whereas we do have some certainty for next year's settlement for 21-22, we are unable to anticipate settlements from 22-23, and therefore we are using again our scenario planning, which will exemplify the effect of any of our assumptions changing over the next few years in terms of grant business rates and precept. So the table on the bottom of page 2 shows the position that was shown to Strategy and Resources Committee. And that was based on the following current assumptions, which were that grant RSG would be at the same levels as 2021, less 25%. We anticipated that our grant would be reduced to nil over 4 years. Our rural services delivery grant would be ceased from 21-22. We would have a 2% increase in our rates and top-up grant. Our precept increase would be at just under 2% for 21-22 and future years. We would have council tax base growth of 1.87% from 21-22 onwards. And we would have a pay award of 2% from 21-22. We, as a sector, and some of government departments had continued to lobby for a precept increase of £5 or 2%, whichever was the higher, which is in line with the referendum limit set for district councils. That hasn't been undertaken this time, but we will continue to pursue that as we go forward. And the other consideration at that point was the major refurbishment at Telford Central. As members are aware, we will need to undertake some borrowing in the next few years as that scheme is undertaken. So we will keep an eye on how much we need to borrow over the next couple of years, but that will need to be factored into our revenue budget. In terms of our grant assumptions going forward, we know now that the fair funding mechanism and the expected reforms to business rates are now delayed. We must then take the future years of our settlement with a high degree of caution. As we've already stated, the years after 22-23 are very unknown, so we need to just be careful about how we look forward and realise that we are estimating in future years rather than using anything more concrete than that. Collection fund and council tax base. We are in a position where the council tax that has been collected by our constituent authorities and the support given to households paying council tax have been affected by the pandemic. So whereas in terms of collection fund, we don't anticipate either a surplus or a deficit in our budget planning. This year, we will be looking at a deficit which will be repayable to our constituent authority. So that will be a change for this year. And also, as we've seen in our assumptions, we do assume a council tax base growth of 1.87%. This has been reduced to nil for 21-22. We have anticipated later on in the options a very slight increase. We have had some indication that there will be slight increases from our authorities, but that won't be confirmed until January. So there are some changes to our assumptions there.
I've got two members indicating they wanted to come in, Joanne, if I may. One was
Okay.
Chris and then Nigel.
Sorry, thanks, Chairman. Had Joanne finished her? I was sort of just indicating as to when Joanne had finished. So
I want you can come to at the end if you wish. I wonder whether something specific on this particular.
No, sorry, Chairman. It was really just to sort of come in once Joanne had finished presenting the paper.
Is that okay for you, Nigel, as well? You're on mute.
Chair, yes, Chair. I just wonder if I could just ask, as I've got the opportunity now, just ask Joanne just to clarify in relation to the Telford project. Obviously, it's good that we've been prudent in covering a large part of the funding that we require for the Telford project by set aside into reserves. But I just wonder if she can give us any indication of sort of the percentage borrowing requirement we might be required to look to in the future. I mean, I'm also aware that the authority has received a note from central government in relation to the level of reserves, and I know, Chairman, you're discussing a response to that, because of course we have, as I pointed out, set aside reserves for specific reasons, and that's the reason for asking.
I'll mention that at the end of the report, if I may, briefly. Yeah.
If I can, Chair, in response to the question on Telford Central, the reserves that we currently held, which are around 16 million, which are appended, currently include around 9 million for the Telford project. That's anticipated to be around 12 at the moment. So we do have a large proportion of that that cost covered with reserves. As the timing of the project has moved backwards, we have had the opportunity to allocate more funds to that scheme as we've identified more underspends as we've gone forward. So there is potential for that to increase. We also have to take advantage of the fact that we haven't borrowed for around about 10 years, and we do have some minimum revenue provision, which is something that's put aside for future schemes which we can allocate. So the proportions will be probably around 10%, I would say, currently, but this is a moving feast. As the scheme moves and the amount of money that we have available increases, obviously that will change. I would just say on the note around the letter back to Minister on reserves, we have indicated to them that although our reserves are shown as one amount of money, we have been able to indicate how much of that is actually down to capital scheme payment, which means we reduce borrowing costs in the future. So we have made that aware to Minister.
Okay, so thank you, Joanne.
Okay.
Thank you. You want to carry on, Joe?
Yes, thank you, Chair. If we move on now to page 5 of the report, this is where we start looking at the effects of changes on our assumptions. So the first item there on the table shows our current assumptions, which were listed earlier on the paper. So we can see from the 4 years that we have in the planning period, we are looking at deficits across all of those areas. That's with using our current assumptions. If we move on to scenario 1, and the changes here are that we receive revenue support grant at the same rate as 2021 for next year, and top-up grant is also awarded to us at the same level as 2021. We also have reduced our council tax base growth to nil, and we have included a collection fund deficit of just over £400,000, and that is a 1-year effect, that the collection fund deficit. Also in this scenario is the pay award for 21-22 is reduced to nil. And you can see from the figures across the planning period that these are slightly more positive. This is because the assumptions that we had on revenue support grant are better than we had in our planning, because we assumed we'd lose a quarter of that. And also there are less costs in the revenue budget due to the public sector pay freeze. So we do have a slightly better position on scenario 1. Scenario 2, the only change in this area is that we include the pension grant of £1 million that we get from the Treasury for increased employer contributions. And you can see that this immediately changes the position to a surplus position. We're unsure at the moment as to whether this will continue year on year, but there is an indication it may be included in the base budget going forward, but this hasn't been confirmed. but at the moment we've included it in our planning at this stage to assume that that will continue. Scenario 3 shows some inflationary increase on our grant and our top-up grant, so that gives us 1.5% increase. Again, indications since this report were written is that that inflation figure will be lower than 1.5%, but in any case it does show an increase across our funding stream there. And also we've shown the position of a very slight increase in our council tax base growth of 0.3%. So again, this increases the surplus position that we're in at that point. And then option 4, scenario 4 there, this is where we've taken away the collection fund deficit to reflect the fact that that will now be compensated up to 75% by central government. When this was written, it was assumed that we would receive all of that money in year 1. It now looks as if we will need to spread that that funding across 3 years. So when we have the guidance from government, we will be able to update that scenario and show that cash flow going across in a slightly different way. But again, you can see by the end of 4, we are again in a surplus position, mainly down to the pensions grant position. So if we move on to page 6, therefore, and the options that we have in terms of our precept strategy, this shows the effect of a 2% increase on precept, a 1% increase, and also a nil increase in precept, given that we're at a positive position. The first option is the same as scenario 4, because we've just taken that forward as a 2% precept. And you can see as we move down the options, the surplus becomes less and we drop into a deficit position by the end of option 3. So members are asked to consider the information in the paper and to consider how they would want to go forward with the precept strategy. There are two real factors really when making that decision. The first one is that because the Strategy and Resources Committee will consider the capital programme in January, any debt charges resulting from the future capital programme will have to be added to this figure, and that is shown at the bottom of page 6. So that cost will have to be factored into options 1 to 3 above. And also to say that given, again, as we've said, the uncertainty that we're facing from 2022 and the fact that the authority have in the past taken a long-term view on their precept strategy and protected the base going forward to ensure that we have the maximum income when we can actually receive it. We would ask you to consider that we are in such a period of uncertainty yet again, to bear that in mind when we make any decision about reducing our precept. That concludes the paper, Chair. I'm happy to take any questions on any aspect of the paper. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that, Jo. Just to touch on briefly before I come to that, what the earlier members mentioned, just for members of the public who are taking notes to other people, I did receive a letter from the Fire Minister quite recently. This was a letter that was sent out to chairs of fire authorities, and it was specifically referring to levels of reserves which fire authorities across the country have. And really, I felt it was right and proper that we should respond to that letter, because we've always been very prudent in this authority. That's why we've been in such a satisfactory position for a number of years, because we've taken the right decisions at the right times over the last few years. And so I thought it was right and proper to speak with Jo and to speak with the Chief and to respond. And that letter back to the Fire Minister will be going out probably today, and I will share that response with members. But I think it's right and proper that we do that. Rod's indicated he wanted to speak. I will be looking for recommendations on options and so on in a moment. But Rod, you wanted to come in?
Thanks, Chair. I'll be brief. What I wanted to potentially remind members while they were making their considerations was obviously a significant factor within this budget is the pension grant and the likelihood or otherwise of it being baselined. It's a reminder really that there are the original grant came about because of a revaluation of the 2016 scheme very soon, relatively soon after its inception, which brought on significant additional employer contributions, and that's in our case it was in the 1 million mark. There is an expectation, or there's indicators certainly, that there will be a new pension scheme in 2022, and we don't know what impact that will have. So I'm not really giving you any more light other than to say that something significant will happen in 2022.
Okay.
I'm always saying it'll come clearer in the future, and I'm hoping again that it might at that point.
Okay. Well, I've got two members indicating who wish to speak, Chris and then Nigel.
Yeah. Thanks, Chairman. Chris Merlings, Chairman of the Strategy and Resources Committee. This report obviously builds on the discussions that we had at Strategy and Resources, and I would refer members to the appendix that's numbered 8. That's with Joanne's latest report, which gives further information and sets out a number of other recommendations that the committee was proposing to the Fire Authority as well. In recent years, we've been used to multi-year local government settlements. Last year was the first year that we had a single year settlement, and we referred to the uncertainties, and with a spending review coming up that would move us hopefully back to a multi-year approach. None of us obviously at that point in time foresaw what this year would deliver, and we're yet again in a one-year situation. As the Chairman has already said, because of previous work the authority has carried out, we're in a pretty strong position going forward. However, as is outlined in the paper, there are a number of uncertainties that still exist. So our budget strategy needs to be around building resilience going forward. So whatever decisions we take now, hopefully will ensure us against any particularly adverse changes that might come as a result. So on that basis, looking at the options, in terms of budget planning, ready for us to be able to approve a final budget in February, I think option 1 is the only secure one that we can work with, and to move forward on that basis. So, given that the strategy, as I say, should really be around insulating us and giving us that continued resilience until some of these other issues hopefully become clearer, and we can plan and work appropriately. I'm happy to move the recommendations set out in paragraph 2, and that 2A be on the basis of option 1. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Nigel?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, thank you to Chris. Councillor Hartin, Vice Chairman of Strategy and Resources. Yes, I fully concur with what Chris has just said. I think there are a significant number of uncertainties, as very clearly set out by Joanne. And I think we don't have to set the final figure until February, but there's plenty of time for things to change in between that time. And I think we need to continue our prudent approach. And so I will formally second the proposal of Chris Mellings.
Okay. So do we have then, we've got a proposer and a seconder. Is that going to apply to A, B and C, Chris, on this agenda?
Yes, Chairman. Yes, please.
Okay, and Nigel the same. In that case, then, I will ask for a roll call of members to agree. That's okay, Lynn?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Adams?
4.
Thank you. Councillor Blundell?
4.
Thank you. Councillor Carter?
4.
Thank you. Councillor D?
4.
Thank you. Councillor Hartin seconded. Councillor Lavery?
4.
Thank you. Councillor Mellings proposed. Councillor Minery?
4.
Thank you. Councillor Pardy?
4.
Thank you. Councillor Price?
4.
Thank you. Councillor Roberts?
4.
Thank you. And Councillor Wynne?
4.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. That vote is agreed.
Thank you very much indeed. Right, we'll go on to item 9, if we may, which is the Integrated Risk Management Plan for 21 to 25. Is Guy making this presentation?
Yes, good afternoon, Chair.
Good afternoon, Guy.
Happy to proceed with it.
Yes, thank you.
This is a report on the Integrated Risk Management Plan and the Consultation Findings. And the recommendations are for the authority to note the appendice, the report that was carried out on the consultation by Opinion Research Services, approved the amended plan, and also approved the appendices to equality impact assessment that was carried out. And I'd like to really approach this in two halves, really. The first part being from my report, which you should all have, which will go through the consultation, how we engage with the public, and the feedback we received. And then the second part of that word will be taking you through the amendments that we have made following the what was said to us by the public and partners, and also from the Strategy and Resources Subcommittee of the authority last week. So without any more ado, I'm more than happy as well to answer questions as I proceed, Chair, but I'll let you interrupt me as and when, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Guy. You proceed.
So the actual consultation started in July and went through, concluded at the very end of September on the 30th of September. We commissioned Opinion Research Services to give us a full report of the online questionnaire process, and also to commission focus groups in various areas in the county that could give us feedback in the room, face to face, as COVID restrictions permitted, to give us a real detail on what people felt about our document, and also about your key proposals moving forward. The overall response was hugely positive. But if I take you to page 3 of the actual attached report, you'll see engagement at a glance. And this is really one of the very first times that we've been in a position of doing the RMP where social media exists, you know, as a well-known tool. So we've given a breakdown there of the number of sort of Facebook and Twitter and sort of reactions and things like that. But I draw your attention to a small part at the top, which is website bounce rate percentage of 38%, which I'll be completely frank, I knew very little about. But this is effectively the number of people that have logged into our IRMP and have actually stayed on that site for a significant period of time and actually progressed to other documents relating to the IRMP. And at 38%, in marketing terms, anything over 20% is usually seen as a considerable success. So what that says is that people who actually visited the site stayed on that site and actually took in information and sought more information, which we take as a huge positive. As is obviously, you know, some of the more traditional media consultation, such as the Chief Bar Officer addressing, you know, 100,000 people on Radio Shropshire. So, you know, we blended traditional with the social media, including things like cartoons and animations, etc., to try and widen and deliver our message and encourage that feedback from the public and partners. We also engaged, obviously, with our staff, with every single group of our staff, station, watch, office, participated in helping design and deliver this. But in addition to that, we also spoke with the parish councils and town councils via the SALT committees, via Zoom, which meant that throughout August and September, we were spreading the key proposals and our key findings and trying to get that picture of feedback from our partners in the councils across the whole county, which is very positive. We did get feedback from parish and town councils. I think 10 of the 15 consultations that came through from partner organisations came from council, parish council groups. The actual data and all the various feedback, the percentages of who agreed with what, are detailed in this report, and they're also in much more detail in the attached appendice from ORS, which obviously you're free to review. On the key proposals, we brought up 5 key proposals. They were all greeted with enthusiasm. The only area where we did receive a certain challenge was on the proposals around our response standard, and specifically on our proposal where we are clarifying our 10 minutes, 15 minutes and 20-minute response, which is 10 minutes for an urban area, 15 for town and fringe, and 20 for a rural area. We received feedback that 32% of people that completed the questionnaire disagreed that 20 minutes was an acceptable amount of time for a response in a rural area. This wasn't mirrored at all in the focus groups, and probably where the focus groups were able to question officers present on, for example, in retained areas, the 5 minutes that we provide for on-call members of staff to receive the pager message in the community and to make their way to the fire station safely so they can respond to the public. So I think probably providing that information at the focus groups meant that that response standard was actually accepted without exception across those 3 focus groups. But obviously where we couldn't provide that information and maybe that clarity, then there was a limited challenge to it. So as a result, that is one area that we have made additional amendments to in the actual document. Besides that, the feedback across our identification of risk, i.e. what are the key risks and key challenges the service faces going forward, and how we propose to manage them, including our 5 key proposals, were extremely well received. Are there any questions on the consultation process before I move on to the amendments we've actually made to the document?
Any questions, members? Appears not, Guy.
Okay.
Sorry, Pauline's indicating.
The young people, how did we manage to get much response from young people?
The ORS, the full brief report, gives a full breakdown of the various age groups, and it takes them through in various in denominations. It's fairly even spread. We had a particularly good response from the OAP community, where that was. I know that's not what you asked, Pauline. Sorry, Councillor, but the key part of that is a lot of our challenges really revolve around an ageing population, and especially independent living in rural areas. So it was really pleasing to see, numbers, high percentages of people in their 80s responding to us, which can only be taken as a positive. We don't have a breakdown of the social media aspects, i.e., the 35,000 sort of engagements on social media of what sort of age groups they are. And it'd be a bit sort of, I'd be a bit assumptive to presume they're necessarily a younger audience even. So we don't have that detail from that side of the campaign, but we do have it from the surveys. But again, the surveys, we had 90 surveys, so it is a limited number. So I wouldn't draw too much into that in either way, Councillor, if that answers your question.
Yeah, it's just, if I may, Chairman, it's that if you in future, if you're doing something like this, if you get in touch with the Shropshire Youth Association and the Shropshire Scouts and Shropshire Guide Associations, I'm sure that's just 3 lots of youth. You probably would get a good response because they would take it as part of an event at the youth club or at the Scout and Guide meetings, so you could get a positive or whichever response from them. I think it's just to make our young people feel as though we really do listen to them.
Thanks for that, Pauline. That sounds a good suggestion to me.
Thank you.
Yes, Councillor, we will certainly note that suggestion, and that'll be action next time, and also in our future engagement during the course of this RMP. So the engagement process doesn't switch off now and sort of reconvene in 4 years. So it's an ongoing process, and we'll certainly take your advice and if necessary, support on that, Councillor. Yeah. We have engaged as part of the process with sort of over 400 partners, including all the parish councils, and actually some youth engagement groups as part of this, where they've received our letters, our emails directly from the Chief Fire Officer, actually. So, we have done some engagement, but I actually think, yes, you're quite right. There is always a way to sort of improve that, and your advice has greatly appreciated, Councillor.
Thank you. Chairman, if I may, because even through the lockdown, the youth groups, different groups of Scouts, etc., have been meeting on Zoom. So, it helped them as well, to make sure that the children are being occupied.
James, you wanted to come in?
Yes, only to add, there is Sea Cadets as well that meet in Telford. I don't know whether they meet in Shropshire too, but they would be a suitable youth group to talk to as well.
Okay, thank you, James.
Yeah, thank you very much. And actually, these sort of suggestions are invaluable. And moving forward, over the course of this RMP, it really will help us to engage with all elements. So your support, councillors, is greatly appreciated.
Thank you.
So last week I was fortunate enough to be able to present the consultation findings of the same report that you've got today to track the Strategy and Resources Subcommittee. And we came up with key proposals for to address some of our partners that had, and also individuals who responded to the consultation. So, you know, again, a massive thank you to the members of the public who took the time, and also our partners who took the time to feed back to us suggestions and endorsements. And the changes we've made are reflected. Lynn, are you able to sort of pop up the new version?
Yes, Guy, I'll do my best. Bear with me a second.
Thank you. We made the changes onto obviously the design version, so that you can actually see them in situ, rather than provide you with the old report and a list of what we want to cross out and what we want to put in.
There we are. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Lynn. What I should say is that the changes are relatively small. They don't amount to any, you know, change of direction or you know, a vast difference to what was there before. But they do reflect, as I said, the comments from our partners such as the PCC, Fire Brigades Union, Shropshire and Wrekin, Dementia Alliance, various other partners. So on page 11, if you could move straight through, always a challenge. Page 11, we were asked to provide a bit more clarity regarding governance and the Fire and Rescue Authority. So in response, I believe, to the Police and Crime Commissioner, we have actually included an additional paragraph that actually details that the authority has a two-committee structure, you know, one developing strategy and the other providing audit performance management. So we think that addresses that aspect. And again, the feedback greatly received. On page 13, thanks, Lynn. Doing a sterling job, that's lovely. The service, we added a paragraph to again speak of how we work with our colleagues at police, and this was specifically again from the Police and Crime Commissioner regarding being more specific that we work together to combat serious organised crime. So we have the service will continue to support police and partners in combating serious and organised crime by undermining county lines, people trafficking and modern slavery. And I think putting that in gives that, you know, makes that link to the Safe West Mercia plan, and also, you know, it puts in that we are committed to this as it affects everybody in Shropshire.
Guy, Tracy just indicated she wanted to speak. Tracy Onslow.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Chad. I didn't mean for the presentation to be interrupted. I was just going to say thank you very much for taking on board the views that John had fed in. That was all. I didn't mean to interrupt the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. And again, the feedback from partners is absolutely essential. So again, I'd like to thank the PCC for taking the time. If I move on to page 20, we looked at, again, feedback through our equality impact assessment process came that we maybe could put more scale of age-related illness. And we speak or we write in the document just underneath the picture about sort of age-related, the growth of the population in Shropshire, that, you know, potentially can be 1 in 3 people over 65 in the not too distant future. And as a result, age-related illnesses like dementia are predicted to rise. So we've just literally added a line there that in 2019 it was recorded that 4,898 people across the county had dementia, and a footnote to where the information came from Shropshire, Telford and Wrekin Dementia Alliance. And I think that provides the scale, and also a note that we recognise that and will obviously adapt our prevention activities to address that. So again, that was the value of the equality impact assessment process, really. If I move on to the next page, 21, and we're nearly halfway through them. So as I said, there weren't a huge amount of changes. And again, this was feedback that came back to us regarding, you know, health and life conditions. And if you look at healthy lives, more the healthy lives and the deprivation angle, we recognise the challenge of life conditions such as neurodiversity. So we are committed to research with the NFCC into how how at risk changes with people with conditions such as Asperger's, other neurodiversity such as that, and also how we address that. So we were able to add an additional paragraph there, which reads, as our understanding of health and life conditions evolves, and so does the challenge of providing those impacted with an equitable service. Such an example is neurodiversity, and the term refers to variation in human brain regarding sociability, learning, attention, mood, and other mental functions. And then, working with partners in the NSCC, the service will consider how staff engage with neurodiversity, such as autism, and the impact on an individual's fire risk. So again, purely from the feedback, but actually an area that we really do need to explore and will commit to. So moving on to page 23, there was a bit of input again from the Police and Crime Commissioner. And obviously we work together with the Safer Roads Partnership. We work together to reduce RTC. And what we wanted to do is add actually a paragraph to it. Sorry, on page 23, please, Lynn, it should be.
Sorry, Guy.
It's all right, unless I got it wrong. Transport and travel, thank you. And it just basically says that we've added a paragraph that the service recognises that both road and water safety are important issues, with people's lives being tragically affected every year. And the service will continue to support the Safer West Mercia Plan, the Safer Roads Partnership, and the River Severn Partnership. And I think obviously we wanted to give nods to the River Severn Partnership and our commitment to be involved in driving that, as climate change flooding is a significant issue, a significant risk, as is people ending up in the river on any other day of the year other than a flooding day as well. So that's an important nod to the input we received from the PCC and other areas. If I move forward to page 24, and again, a lot of feedback on the environment, and we have actually changed the title from environment to environment and climate change to hopefully provide a little bit more gravitas to it. We've also added a paragraph, this is following feedback from partners, including the Fire Brigade Union. In recent years, firefighters have battled huge wildfires across the UK, and more heat waves and wildfires are a realistic future. Shropshire is a large rural county, and as such, the service will continue to plan for large wildfire events. And that is just, as I said, a nod to that aspect of climate change and the environment to meet, as I said, to meet the feedback we received. We move forward towards the end now on page 33. And this was feedback regarding the response standard that I've already touched on briefly. And this came from the public about that 20-minute rural response, where we found that, around about 32% of people did not necessarily agree with it. What we've done is we've added a paragraph to explain at the bottom. If you could just raise the page, the final paragraph, I can just about see it. Sorry, Lynn. And it said that the Irmp consultation identified various public awarenesses of the service's response resources and capabilities, especially in rural areas. And this was true. On the focus groups, we had, that sort of, surely you have a fire engine on every lane, or, there's 30 or 40 fire engines, available in Shropshire at any one time. So there was a very limited understanding of what we actually have. So we've added, in addition to that, the service recognises there'll be a need to emphasise on continuing to engage with our communities on this issue during the life of the RMP. Can you just scroll the page down a little bit? Thanks, then. And the aim of this dialogue will be to identify, is there an expectation for reduced response times, or if increased prevention work will be satisfactory. It says recognising the integration of the response standard with the proposal to increase targeted prevention in rural areas, whilst maintaining the 97% plus appliance availability, is crucial to managing the rural risk. So it's acknowledging people's concerns and saying that actually this can't be taken in isolation. So the 20-minute is coupled by a commitment to work in those rural areas by increasing our prevention, and also maintaining and, if possibly, improving what is a very good availability at 97%. So we've included that to try and give that context and also support, and also lay down how that we will engage and be judged as we move forward. So hopefully that provides some clarity. On page 34, if we come down a little bit, then we then come into prevention. And what we've done is we've added, again, from the equality impact assessment process, the impact really on COVID-19 amongst many people, more people living at home, more people shielding, more people working from home, and especially in rural areas, the impact on social isolation and that increasing of that risk away or spreading more out across the rural areas of the county away from the large urban areas. So we've amended the paragraph, and it now reads, further, as a result of COVID-19, many people now find themselves working from home, shielding or self-isolating, thus contributing to levels of isolation. As interactions with others decreases, those living alone are at greater risk of fire and accidents. And this is especially so in rural areas. Obviously, that engagement can reduce significantly. So the service has also recognised that we had a lot of feedback about using volunteers, that we were talking about increasing our prevention in rural areas and looking at innovative ways of doing it through technology, etc. But actually, we got the feedback we needed to be specific. So we have now changed the fact that the service will review opportunities to increase engagement using technology, partnerships and volunteers to overcome barriers and improve efficiency. So we've actually put in now that we will look at, and we will utilise volunteers as part of this. And that is, again, that's been driven by the feedback, especially from the parish councils via the SALT sessions. Almost to a one was the issues of the parish councils, actual volunteer groups and independent volunteers. If we move forward to page 34, we're on page 44. Underneath the service aims, you'll see that we will be adding a new visual, and this is just to, that's it perfectly. Our final service aim has been slightly amended to make culture central to our strategy by becoming more purposefully diverse and inclusive, deliberately developmental and intentionally innovative. And actually that is explained nicely by a visual which is under construction, which will be added at a later date. So if you can move forward to page 41 for the final amendments. And this final section is about measuring impact, and this is how or what we're going to do to look at. And the key change here is we've included now that blue box, which basically is the intention of what the high level outcomes, where we want to focus on attendance and absence management, competence levels of our staff, availability of response resources, performance against our response standard. Obviously, the number of fire deaths and serious injuries in our community, number of injuries and accidents for our firefighters, number of fire incidents in domestic dwellings, and number of fires that are confined to the room of origin, and a performance against the risk-based inspection programme. They are really the fundamentals of what we do. And underneath those will sit a much larger set that we can scrutinise and monitor for performance. Finally, on that page, again with feedback from partners included in the Fire Brigades Union, the service the final paragraph, the service will also engage with the National Fire Chiefs Council, the NFCC, and partners to develop performance measures to recognise the economic and social cost of fire. And this is work that hasn't been done but really needs to be developed. So we are committing to starting that journey as part of our methodology for measuring and demonstrating impact. So those are the changes. There will inevitably be some minor layout changes and some potential typos or some grammar issue that I've not yet spotted. But that is the report. That is also the changes that have been made following the strategy and resources. That concludes my presentation at this time.
Thank you. I will make a comment myself, but first I had an indication from Councillor Adams he wanted to speak. Peter?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, this is obviously a major and important report that needs studying and analysing so we can go forward with maximum effect into the future. but I am worried that this came through at 13:06 when we were at group meetings. And to be quite honest, if you were to tell me, is my input into this debate 100% of what it could be, I would say probably not. But what I could ask is, if a report like this, which is 54 important pages, comes through and there are relatively few changes from the previous report, could possibly an indication be put on the front saying that you need to look at, shall we say, page 15 and page 30 and page 45, so that the stuff we've seen in the past is accepted, but we're looking at an exceptions, because I think that would help all members. Thank you, Chairman.
Guy, you wanted to respond?
Chair, if I might, as Chief on this before Guy does.
Yeah, thanks, Rod.
Just to point out, thank you very much for raising that, Councillor Adams. The report that was provided in line with the statutory timescales did indeed have an appendix. It does have an appendix on it, which draws your attention precisely to that. It details the substantive changes to the Irmp, which has been on our website throughout the consultation. What Guy's just brought to you now is just the updated one that he's been working on right to the wire, because he thought it might be useful for you to see it in its completeness.
Yeah, I was going to comment.
Sorry, Chair, I'm not having a go at anyone. It's just that he's done the work. He's done a phenomenal amount of work consulting people, and he's brought us an update, but the update was difficult to follow in the light of what's gone before. And it's more clarification. I'm not knocking what he's done, because it looks magnificent to me. It's just that as we have a limited time to digest what was coming through, it seemed to me that just on the front of that, an aid memoir more than anything else would have been useful.
Okay. Rod, did you still want to come back?
Yeah, thanks, Councillor, and I appreciate that. And perhaps what we should learn from is perhaps putting it as an appendix at the end of the report might have been confusing, and we'll certainly learn from that in the future. Thank you.
Okay. Have we got any other indications? Tracy, did you see your hand in the air?
I think it's up from last time, Chair. Sorry, I'll take it down.
I was there from before. Right. Okay. Lynn?
Sorry, Chair. It was just to sort of add to the debate about the document being emailed out. Probably the step that I missed was to include those details in the covering email, which would have been probably the right way to do it. But we will take note of that for future and make sure that's done.
Okay. Could I just come back? Did you want to come back, Guy, before I say something?
Sorry?
Yeah, very briefly, Chair. Thank you. It's just to echo the Chief Officer's comments, actually, regarding the appendice, and obviously we can make that more clearer next time. I think that'd be more beneficial for everybody. Obviously, the Irmp itself was passed, I think, on the 24th of June. Yeah. So this document was passed on the 24th of June for consultation. So there's very little has changed since the 24th of June, bar obviously what's detailed in that appendice. So just for your information. Thank you.
Okay, well, just my own few comments would be to echo what other people have said, and thanks. Who's speaking in the background? Somebody's speaking.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Could you mute yourselves, please?
Yeah, that's it, love. Yes. I must order it as soon as possible.
Can you mute?
All right then.
Bye.
Okay, I'll be in touch as soon as I hear from him.
Bye.
Okay. Could I just say, as I was just starting to say earlier, thank you very much, Guy, for the effort that you and your colleagues have put into this report, and the very important updates and very important alterations which were taken on board and which have enhanced the original report. So thanks very much for that. I would also just make a brief comment I've said this before, and I'm not going to apologise for saying it again. This really shows to me what the future might hold in terms of additional roles that we are taking on board as a fire authority and a fire and rescue service, particularly in light of climate change with flooding and wildfire issues. These are things which we wouldn't have had to cope with some years ago, but certainly the way things are moving forward, it's likely that these will be more and more prevalent, and we will have to deal with them as part of our normal existence. And it is something that we've learned from, and I'm sure we will benefit from all the hard work that's gone in over the last 12 months, certainly from February with the massive floods we have. And I've said it before, I'll say it again, I brought this up myself through the FSMC and the NJC, and also I've contacted the River Severn Partnership as well and said, you know, how we want to work together with them, because let's be fair, when the flooding takes place, who are the first people on site usually? It's the fire and rescue service. So it is a very important part of our role going forward. So thank you very much indeed. What I want to do now is to go to the recommendations and ask for a proposer and a seconder, if I may, that these be A, B and C be approved. I thought we're all coming on now. We have somebody to propose and second.
I'll propose.
I'll second.
Okay, we got those, Lynn. Did you note those names?
Chair.
Yeah, okay.
I did, thank you, Chair.
Okay, right, well, we'll go to the usual now and ask for conducting the vote to support that, if I may.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Adams.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Blundell. Councillor Blundell. Thank you. Councillor Carter.
For.
Thank you. Councillor D seconded. Councillor Hartin.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Lavery proposed. Councillor Mellings.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Minery.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Pardy.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Price.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Roberts.
For.
Thank you. And Councillor Wynne.
For.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Those recommendations have been approved.
Right, thank you very much indeed. Right, we'll continue with Guy and now go on to the Fire Alliance update, item 10.
Thank you. Thank you again, Chair.
Okay, David.
Recommendation is for the authority to note the report, the progress report I've provided. If I take you to page 2, the program update. Since the last report, we've had several changes in personnel across the Alliance, and as such, the senior responsible owners for the 4 key projects that underpin the Alliance have all been reallocated or in the process of being reallocated. So the table on page 2 gives you a visual of the various names in the frame. So for the RMP will be Assistant Chief Officer Dan Quinn from Shropshire, Procurement, Assistant Chief Forester John Price, Hereford and Worcester, ICT, Assistant Chief Officer David Myers until his retirement, and then Assistant Chief Officer Simon Hardiman will take over the reins there, and Fire Control will be by Temporary Deputy Chief Officer Keith Chance from Hereford and Worcester. So that just gives you, obviously there is, some things might change there, but that is basically the way it looks moving forward. Progress on all projects still being challenged by the ongoing pandemic. As you can see, that is in the conclusion to my report, as resources have and still are being diverted to essential workflows, etc. However, progress is being made. And if I take you to project number 1, fire control, work is ongoing at present to finalise the strategic options appraisal on 16 options that are on the table for the provision of a fire control function. This short list of options with a full appraisal of each will be completed in early 2021 with a preferred option, which will be agreed by the delivery board. So that's moving forward and starting to take shape. The IRMP, that obviously you've just had a fairly detailed analysis of where we are with Shropshire. All the timelines are provided in the box on page 3. and this is exactly the same in Hereford and Worcester as it is in Alliance Project. The Hereford and Worcester are at the same position in the process of approving their final document, and as we move into 2021, then obviously we will be exploring the symmetry with our various performance measures and KPIs so that we can benchmark successfully across the Alliance. ICT, on page 4 of the report, there is a breakdown of the 3 key sort of areas that are underway at the moment. Wide area network, known as the WAN, the help desk, and also software analysis. So creating a single wide area network that combines 2 infrastructures is a challenge, and the project team are investigating a variety of ways of how that might look in each service. And again, this means balancing costs, resilience, capacity, and future expectations. That's a work in progress. The help desk, again, the 2 services, ICT service desks, have tested and appraised 3 possible solutions, softwares, applicants, to identify and select solutions that will provide both services with exactly what they need. And this is now moving into implementation phase into 2021. And also, a review has been completed into software in both services, and the vision of using, where possible, a cloud-first approach to software procurement is part of moving forward again. So that's still a work in progress, but that is part of the software analysis. Final project, obviously, procurement. We have procurement strategy, and we worked together for many years really on procurement. But actually, first main item that's just recently been procured is a joint procurement of smokers, which fell out of the recommendations from the Grenfell Tower inquiry. The specification for the smokers emerged as a requirement, and that was scoped out by both services, and the joint procurement has taken place. Other such opportunities in ICT, in related hardware and software, are also being explored, and a plan is being developed for that future joint procurement. So finally, communications strategy, not one of the 4 key areas, but essential to underpin all the work that we are doing. This really was impacted by the pandemic, as both services need internal and external communications around the pandemic was the priority, and still is to a certain degree. However, resources have been identified that can now develop an alliance communication strategy to support these various workflows and future functionality. So again, in summary, we have been impacted by the pandemic and still are, but progress is being made, and we have, set senior responsible owners and also plans in place for delivery in 2021. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed for that, Guy. It is, as chair of this particular body this year, I'm aware of the delays that have taken place because of the COVID situation, but we are committed, and I think it's fair to say this, we're all committed to making sure that this alliance produces the necessary benefits, and that's not just cost benefits, it's working together as 2 authorities and seeing where we can come together, particularly in the lines of procurement, as you've already pointed out, and ICT. But it is a worthwhile experiment, it's a worthwhile thing that we're doing, and it has been put forward to the head office, and also working with the LGA. They're aware of what we're doing and are very, very much in approving what we say. So thanks very much indeed for that. Thank you for your efforts, and thank you for the efforts of the team across both services. I see that Peter's indicated he wants to come in and say something. Peter? You're on mute.
Yeah, just come off it. Thank you, Chairman. Just 2 things. I want to say that I was told at I think it was the last meeting I was at, that absence rates on the Fire and Rescue Authority during the last year had fallen, and I want to make sure that everyone in the Fire Authority recognises that we think that's a fantastic result. Not a decent one, it's a good one. And I have used it at Shropshire Council when I get some of the people working from home department who say they've all got the virus. I say, well, if you've got the virus, how come the Fire and Rescue Authority haven't, who are meeting the public all the time and doing a much more face-to-face job than you do? So I want to say thank you to the whole of the brigade for that. But can I just have a general one? And I'm sorry to spring this on you, but it was just something Guy just said. I think it was about Grenfell. If I know we don't have this in thing, but if a company came to Shropshire to do whatever it is that Grenfell type thing does, and you as a fire authority thought that their science and information they were giving you as to how good their cladding or whatever it was, what powers do you have to challenge them? Sorry to drop that on you, but it's only just
Rod's indicated if you want to come in before Guy. Rod, you're on mute. That's better.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, there's a big question. Thank you, Councillor Adams. Without going into huge amounts of detail, then the outcome of the Grenfell review and the Hackett review has changed legislation, and it has created an overarching enforcement authority for trying to bring together in a coordinated way all the powers with regards who have responsibility for, as I say, enforcing legislation around building safety. So we've brought more into it in that respect. In terms of, as it would normally be, that it would come through planning and building control. We would be asked our opinion, and when we're a small fire authority, so we don't have huge amounts of in-house expertise. So what we do is, like in other things, we outsource for our expertise. So we do have fire engineers on tap that we have long-standing relationships with, that we pay as consultants. So that's how we would challenge, and we have, not necessarily specifically in Grenfell type situations, but you think some of the other things when we've managed major shopping centre redevelopments recently, where we haven't been at all happy with the proposals they put in place. We've brought in expertise, we've worked with colleagues, and we've paid for consultants where we have had to undertake our enforcement activities. So we've done it in the past, but I think the new legislation that's coming in will tighten it up, and it will give us far more of a voice.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Okay, Peter. I'll say thank you very much indeed.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to Rod about that, because that was the one niggle I had, that something like that could be foisted upon us like it was at Grenfell, and we had no comeback. But it looks like we do have something. So thank you, Rod, and thank you, Guy.
Okay, right, well, we'll go to the recommendation now, if I may, and I'm prepared to propose this as the chair of the Alliance, and perhaps Chris could second that as he's advised.
Yes, Chairman, happy to second that.
And we'll ask the Executive Support Officer to conduct the vote, if I may, Lynn.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Adams.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Blundell.
For.
Thank you. Councillor D.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Horton.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Lavery.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Minnery's left the meeting. Councillor Pardy.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Price.
For.
Councillor Roberts.
For.
Thank you. And Councillor Wynne.
For.
Thank you. That's agreed, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. Right, we'll move to item 11, if we may. This will be presented by Dave Myers. This is the Corporate Risk Management Summary. Dave?
Thank you, Chair. As you'll be aware, and members will be aware, the Corporate Risk Register is presented to the authority twice a year. It's monitored quarterly through Standards Audit and Performance Committee. The Appendix B, or Appendix A and B, show the corporate risks and the direction of travel. Members will be pleased to note that there's been no change in the direction of travel, over the past 6 months, and all of the corporate risks are being managed appropriately. I'm happy to take any questions on any of the risks individually if members want any more information, Chair.
Okay. Any questions or details, members, on that before I ask for a vote to be proposed and seconded? Does not look likely, so I'll ask for a proposer and a seconder for that, please. Well, I'll go and propose it, seeing as I don't see anybody else.
Councillor Chairman.
Sorry, Karen Blundell seconded, I see. So we'll take a vote again, if we may now, Lynn.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Adams.
4.
Thank you. Councillor D.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Hartin.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Lavery.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Mellings.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Pardy.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Price.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Roberts.
4.
Thank you. And Councillor Wynne.
4.
Thank you. That's agreed, Chair.
Right. Well, we're going to move on to item 12. Before I do that, may I just thank members of the public who have tuned in and listened to us, and I hope they would agree with me that we're running a very, very successful fire authority, and we like to make sure that the public are with us, and very, very often they are. So anybody that has been listening in, thank you very much indeed, and we look forward to seeing you in the new year. So
Thank you very much, Chair. And can I just wish everybody a very Merry Christmas? It's Tracy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you for attending once again. Thank you very much. Bye now. Right. So we move on to exclusion of press and public for decision. Do members agree that under section 100A/4 of the Local Government Act 1972, the press and public be excluded from the meeting for the following items on the grounds that they involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined by the provision of Part 1, Schedule 12A to the Act by virtue of paragraphs 1, 2, 3 and 4. Proposed and a seconder? Proposed and a seconder?
I'll second it.
Yeah.
Keith, and is it John there?
Okay.
We'll have to go through the usual now again, Lynn.
We do, unfortunately, Chair. Councillor Adams.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Blundell.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Carter.
4.
Thank you. Councillor D.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Hartin.
4.
Councillor Lavery.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Mellings.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Pardy.
4.
Thank you. And Councillor Wynne.
4.
Thank you. Chair, if we could just wait for confirmation that we've stopped streaming.